College athletics has changed over the past few years. How much has that impacted, or has it, the way you recruit? I mean, just say 15 years ago when you're going to recruit, let's say Klay Thompson, it seemed a little simpler then than it does now. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. I mean, how do you look at that?
100%.
Yeah.
It's a new time. I think, I don't know if I don't mean to repeat myself, but in there I talked about, I think you look at, we're trying with this, the way this team is assembled, kind of look at it in 2-year increments.
Right.
This is the last year of COVID. I think it's about time, right?
Yeah, right.
We think that, no comment on that. Okay, keep going.
Yep.
But, so, there will be some of the super 5th, 6th, 27, 26-year-old players.
Yeah.
But after this year, it'll get back to a 4-year program. And I mean, I guess if there's an old-fashioned red shirt, and so we've said, all right, let's look at this with our team. Yes, and Jalen Warren are only 2 seniors. This team is going to be together for 2 years. Could you lose a player or two after? Absolutely, all that stuff's real. But the core of it will be together for the next 2 or 3 years. So next year, when the COVID year goes, you're going to have a team that's played together that's mainly juniors and seniors with a lot of experience. That's not saying this year is a throwaway. No, I think this year's team has a chance to be good. But I think, to answer your question in terms of recruiting, I don't think you can think 4 or 5 years, redshirt, build it. Yeah. You're thinking a little more in 2-year increments. And I said this up there, until and probably the next step is, the collective bargaining agreement.
Right.
Again, when you played in the NBA, it was the players, it was the owners, and they would come together and agree on some stipulations until there is a salary cap, until there are transfer regulations, until there's tampering regulations, what involvement that agents and all those things come, until there gets to be some regulations, that will be healthy. Then we're going to be in a space where it's regulated more. No question, I don't think any coach disagrees that it's a billion-dollar industry, and now the athletes shouldn't have some of the revenue, but without the regulations, it's kind of it's making it really difficult for some of the Olympic sports, some of the other programs, because everyone's at different places. So I think that is going to be the next step. The days of amateur athletics are gone. I hope that we'll be able to always honor the student athlete still. That'll never become where the academics are taken away from it, that they still can be students. But so until there's some regulations, it's what it is. But I think you think in those smaller blocks. I really do, the 2-year blocks, what I say when you're building a program.
How much more difficult has it made your job, or has it, since you first got in the business? I mean, you have to do so many more different things.
It's very different, but you just have to evolve. Rules change, and you have to evolve. But I think everybody would be on the same if there's some more regulations, but because of the perfect storm of how the rules came into account with agents being allowed to represent, you got transfer portal, you got the NIL all at once, boom. Without the regulations, it makes it real difficult for a standardized or level playing field. Like in the past, some people would cheat, some wouldn't, but there was a standard. So I think when we get back to that, that'll be healthy. I think that is the next step. And I'll tell you, I'll say this, and this is something I feel really important is getting lost in this. Once we get to the point where there is revenue sharing, I think a ripple effect that not a lot of people are talking about is the mental health aspect for our student athletes. When you have to, pay a student athlete, and it can be FOIA, people know this is how much these student athletes are making because it's coming from the university. Right now, everything's kind of there. There's going to be some pressures and mental health things. The way people are attacked on social media, when students know exactly, well, this guy next to me is making this, when professors know that, when fans and enemies. And so I really worry in the attempt of trying to do this. I just think it's worth noting, and I worry a lot about the mental health of the pressures that will come as we enter into this new way. And I hope that as we move forward, there's going to be some protection in this. And again, I wish things could be private, but I understand there has to be some, everyone needs to know, so we're on this level playing field. But I'm very concerned about that for the future of our students.
I wanted to ask you about a big picture question about football. Everybody, conference realignment is chasing football dollars. TV money seems to be driven by football dollars. Basketball pays the bills for the NCAA with March Madness, but do you worry about basketball becoming I don't know if marginalized is the right word, but it just feels like everything has been football in the forefront, and all these crazy moves going on, and that basketball is sort of taking a back seat, and that's healthy for the sport.
Yeah, I was talking to he'll remain nameless, who was at a very prominent school that had a basketball tournament that had a prominent football team, and he said he was talking to his AD like, hey, we're always making decisions about football, and the AD said to him, no, he said, we're not making decisions about football, we're making decisions about money. These are money decisions, they're not football decisions, they're not basketball decisions, they're financial decisions, let's call it what it is. So, you know, as TV revenue, as things expand, and, you know, universities are going to have to probably step in and help out. I don't know how this, you know, you keep saying this isn't sustainable, this is what it feels like, right? Until there's regulations. That was my point of saying that stuff. But is basketball going to be marginalized? Is that? I don't know. I mean, I think this sounds strange coming from me. I'm not worried about basketball or football. I'm worried about a lot of the Olympic sports that there's been so many opportunities for so many people to become our greatest leaders, to have opportunities at education and experiences that I think are going to be in jeopardy because of this model we're going to, this pro model, which it is what it is. That's what's going to get maybe more than marginalized. That's the concern. I don't think basketball will ever be marginalized or football won't. I really don't. I could be wrong, you know, but I say that the real concern, and I don't know if there's anything anybody can do, is I worry about those sports that have provided opportunities and education for those less fortunate that wouldn't have had a chance. That's what's one of the big things that's at stake. That, to me, in the mental health stuff that's coming, are real concerns. But I know what we're chasing, and that's what it's about.
Coach.
Tony, in terms of your offense, how different is it? I mean, different enough that the fans will notice?
Yeah, everybody's asking, well, I guess we're going to be this run and gun team. No, look, we're going to be so fast. You know, remember Loyola Marymount, right? I mean, it's if we have the ball and we're not shooting within 5 seconds. No. Look, the reality is this. Last year's team, great character. They finished third. They won 20-plus games, had great character, got blown out 7 or 8 times, but they could get up off the mat and still be that successful. But we couldn't connect. When we were off with our shooting and teams were on, like the separation occurred, we haven't been beat like that. So we said, all right, what do we need to address? We feel like we have to bring some shooting into the program and not lose. We lose 2 of our best defenders, right? But can we open up the floor and stretch the floor? That was kind of a constant when we struggled a lot, as we just, you know, the teams would scheme against us differently. And so we tried to add in the portal and through that some guys that can stretch the floor and shoot the ball. What I think you'll see, and we'll always adjust, is spacing. I think the floor and what we're trying to do, you know, it all looks good until you get in competition, but you're going to see more of an open floor. We'll use ball screens more, and but just studying, looking at where we think there can be some more opportunities to hopefully shoot some more good rhythm threes, open up the lane with the shooting, and, you know, not compromise other areas. I think that's what you'll see. I've always been, if we have an opportunity and it's a good shot early, take it. If you play against a great defensive team, sometimes you can't. So you still have to play in a way that helps you win. I don't know if we'll score more points, less points, whatever. You will see more of an open floor. I think that will be clear to you. And yeah, absolutely, if there's opportunities and we can go, but it's really what gives you the best chance to win. So that's the adjustment.
So the pace really isn't different, or it is different?
I mean, I think it just depends. I mean, we're trying to, if there is something there early, yeah, and I think the way we've tried to structure our offense, and we'll see how it goes, sometimes there's good early open shots, absolutely. So again, pace is something that is dictated how you defend, how quickly, you know, the offense can break you down and then going. But if we can get some more opportunities to get up and down, yes, but we're not going to, as I joked early, be a team that's like, wow, they're just flying around. I think you'll see space, and hopefully you'll see some more pace, unless it's a great defensive team we're playing against. So.
What made you, because obviously you could have just looked at that as last year as, okay, that's just a one-year thing, I'm not going to tear everything up just because of how one team played offense, 1 year's team played offense. What made you think, yeah, no, I think it's worth doing now?
Yeah, I think the game continually evolves. I mean, you guys probably, to the untrained eye, and I'm not saying any of you are trained, don't take me that way. we've evolved with our defense. We've made adjustments. We do things as the game evolves, as players evolve. And the same thing even with our offense. So much of it is personnel driven. But you look at it and say, okay, we got to kind of maybe, now we have to bring in some new players. You look at personnel and how you have to play. But I think we have to find ways when you have shooting to use that and not let people just jam the lane. Again, there are going to be nights, obviously, you're not shooting well and that happens. But I've oftentimes, you know, with the national championship team, we made some big adjustments offensively that year. I always look at offensive efficiency. We were very poor in offensive efficiency this last year. Poor. Like as low as we've been in a long time. And so what can we do to become more offensively efficient? Whether that means if it's playing slower, playing faster, spray, whatever that we can do, whatever we can do to improve that. Because that's to me what it's about, your offensive efficiency and your defensive efficiency, not how many points you allow or how many points you score, how efficient are you? And I think that's what you get to. But yeah, looking at last year's team, looking at other teams, like, well, how can we evolve in that?
So who are the new guys that you expect to help shooting-wise? Because obviously you just look on paper, no one was like a big double-figure scorer through old school.
No, there's some unproven guys, but I think Isaac McNeely is now an upperclassman. Tane shoots the ball. TJ Power, we recruited him out of high school, is a shooter. Elijah Saunders from San Diego State can stretch the floor at playing. You know, he can play a forward spot. He can play a small ball 5. We have some of those. Ishan Sharma from Canada, terrific shooter, incoming first year. So we'll have some guys that are improving, and I don't want to leave other guys out, but we have more. We're different than last year's team. Last year's team had certain strengths, but we're different than last year. Less experienced, but different in terms of the ability to shoot the ball in more positions. Not every position, but more positions.
Coach, how do you?
NIL's been so big here recently and everything. How have you seen the recruiting process change over the last couple of years as NIL has expanded?
A lot. I mean, there's guys that we've lost out on that we never would have lost out on before. And certain schools are getting players, and I just think that's become a big part of it. And I think it has to become a part of the recruiting process. But I think you'll hear some coaches that say this and some won't. If that is the number one thing, I'm looking for the highest bidder. Probably Virginia's not the place, but you know, it's got to be a holistic approach. But yeah, no, it's changed. I think it's allowed some teams to either fix their team or rebuild it quickly by, if they have a big enough budget or NIL fund, salary pool, or I don't know what terminology we're allowed to use or not use. It doesn't matter, to be honest. But I think those teams that they can boom quickly. If they have the funds and that's what people are looking for, only boom, put a team together quickly. So that's what's changed, you know, as far as the building up.
And what's your process of identifying the players that you want to go after and kind of fit the mold of what Virginia wants within this process?
I mean, I think it's similar to what others. I mean, you have to look at what your needs are. Certainly, you have to look at. I mean, you can't take the shortcut. Obviously, the character piece is huge because that's the true serum, as we say, when you're going to go through the hard times. And if you've got guys that are just interested in how much money they got and how does this benefit me. No, it's got to be about, yes, you and us, and then how can we build this? And you know, I always hope that, and it is becoming less, but I always hope that the education from a school like Virginia and those it matters to it.
Coach, forgive me for the forgive me for the two-part question. The first part of it being that, how do you assess someone like a TJ Power who, like, is there anything that you're seeing on him that maybe, you know, you didn't see, or maybe he didn't have the opportunity to kind of show when he was at Duke or what have you?
I think what was important with not all, but most of our guys that we've added from the portal is we recruited them out of high school. So he was one of our top recruits. We really tried to target him, and Duke, you know, saw him and he played really well and they got involved, and obviously he chose to go there. So what we knew from before, as opposed to, you know, if we just base it on film when he played at Duke, that's hard, you know, because it's such a limited sample size. So knowing that we were recruiting him hard out of high school, and obviously saw him a little bit with Duke, that was important, and he's got 3 years left. And again, as I said, we needed to bring in some skill, guys that could stretch the floor. He's a 6'8", 6'9" guy, that can play, you know, the 3, the 4, has some, you know, he's not just a shooter, but has some real good skill, and is willing to work and knows he just wants a chance to, like, have a bigger role as he continues to evolve, and that's kind of how that played out. So, and then we've seen that in practice, and like all our guys, sure, we've got work to do, but you know, they showed those flashes of things that you recruited them for out of high school.
And the second question being a guy that you coached at Wazoo, being Klay Thompson. How do you envision him fitting in now with a whole new group?
I don't. I envision him with Steph, and I see the Splash Brothers. But Klay, you know, being a veteran, as long as he's healthy, because he plays efficient, and with a guy like Luka and those, and you know, he gets going, he'll be fine. Klay, it's been awesome to see him evolve his personality. I mean, I had him as a freshman, and he hardly said 2 words. You know, now he's Mr. Congeniality with the media, but he'll be great. And you know, it's as long as he's healthy, I think that's it. But the way he plays, and you know, for him a new start in this time, I think it'll be exciting for the end of his career with a talented young team. So I'm hopeful for him, and excited to see a lot of those guys you get to coach having success. It's pretty cool.
This year you have to go to.
I was talking to Tane, and he said something that. And thank you very much.
Big fan
Appreciate
of avocados.
I know, right? And I got avocado socks too.
Oh
by the
boy,
way,
we
so.
got it going on. I bought my daughter an avocado necklace with it. She loves avocados. So I had my phone. I'd take a picture, but I won't do it.
Give me your number. I'll text it to you. Anyway, so I was talking to Tane, and he said something that kind of made me like do a double take. He said that we're going to push the ball up the floor this year. Virginia pushing is that a relative term, or is that something?
No, I mean, we talked a little bit about it. I think first, you know, if there's opportunities there, but we're talking about trying to space the floor a little more with our shooters. That's just one of the things we've tried to address in the offseason. How can we open up the floor? And the only way you open the floor is you have to have guys who are threats to shoot it. And, you know, make some adjustments to our offense, not throw everything away. The role of the player is good shot selection and take care of the ball. And then we try to put schemes together that give us the best opportunities. If there is an opportunity to get it and push multiple players and we can get something great, but then get into your offense, the majority of your offense is going to be in the half court. It's whether you're a running team or not, you've got to be able to be effective in that. But absolutely, we worked on that to get down the floor, and if there's something good, take it. But if not, it's I think you'll see most of the differences. Actually, I thought someone else was there in the spacing.
So Isaac had a real traumatic experience at the end of the ACC tournament. And how has he bounced back? Because some players, that's going to linger. I mean, it seems like I just talked to him about it. It seems like he's kind of moved on from it. But how do you do that?
That's probably the most valuable thing that I think any student athlete that sports teaches is to fail, to struggle, to have a hard team situation, an individual situation, as a coach, as a person, and then say, okay, back up. That team, because of how it was built, if that team didn't have the strongest character, that would have been a below or 500 level team. But because of Reese and Ryan and our Jordan Minor and guys like him, we were able to get blown out multiple times, get back up, win enough games, finish third, do all that. That's all about that. And a guy like his perspective, first he has a strong faith. He has a perspective and a hope and a peace way beyond circumstantial or what this is. He loves it, he competes, but that's the best thing for these students. That's another thing when it gets tough and we can just say, boom, I'm off to the next. Some of the best stuff happens in that valley where you're kind of wrestling and struggling. And I think, many of the players that have struggled for me and stayed and gone on or having NBA careers, they said as hard as it was, I think that is one of the key things that helped me be able to have the success I've had. And I've asked them, I said, if it was this environment, would you have stuck it out and stayed, or would you have gone? 6 guys, I did this little poll, and 3 said, either my parents weren't going to let me leave or I will stay, and I knew it. 3 of them, who are awesome guys, said, I would have left. I wouldn't have had a choice. Either I would have gone because I had the promise, the allure, or my parents or my people would have pushed me. They said, and I would have missed out on the best thing for me. And so we all know that, being old and experienced, but that's what sports teaches you. Whether it's in the year you're with somewhere or the 2 years, 3 years, the ability of a guy like Isaac just to get back up, play, and he had a good year, and he'll be now an upperclassman. He'll be important because we don't have a ton of Virginia experience.
Tommy, you've been spoiled over the years.
Point guard. There you're going? Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay.
No, you anticipated the question. You have some uncertainty
Yeah.
there. Is it Day-Day? Is it Carter? Or excuse me, Jalen? Or
You say Carter Lang, I would say we got problems.
No, you got 6'8" walk-on. It's not going to come.
That is not.
But Worley, Ames?
Yeah, I think by committee, albeit we've been blessed to have, and I'll go back to, I inherited Jontel Evans just to help us build it. I mean, we're talking then Malcolm Brogdon, London Prentice, Ty Jerome, Kihei Clark, Reese, like amazing, right? So here we are, and it'll be Jalen Worley right now. And he broke his hand, but he's been able to practice with a cast and all that. But he's pretty much past that now. He played in the blue light scrimmage, but he was kind of limited with some stuff. But he is he's a unique kid. He's 6'6", 6'7", played for Florida State, so he's got experience, handles the ball, passes well, defends at a high level, continuing to learn. He'll be one of those guys. You mentioned Day-Day. Andrew Rohde actually has really played. That's what he was in high school, and he was a natural point guard. He's really taken a step in terms of playing that position because we've had to with some guys getting injured. He can play it. Again, so I think it'll be by committee, and we'll have more size this year. That's one thing I haven't mentioned about anything, in terms of, who we put on the floor again, if I put a 5 out on the floor, he'd be the smallest guy when you have Worley playing at the point. So, there's some good size, and I hope that will help some things defensively, and just we're a little more rugged that way. But will we miss Reese Beekman as a point guard? I'll let you answer that. Okay. Now, of course, will we miss Ryan Dunn as a showstopper or an eraser? Yeah, but I do think we'll have to do it by committee. But I think Worley and those guys you mentioned, but Rohde, Worley, Christian Bliss has been injured. That's another guy. He's recovering from some foot stuff, so we'll see where he plays into that. But you'll do it, and then our system we're playing, it's a little more sharing, and you can maybe get away with some other guys. It's not quite as dominant. With Reese, it was the ball was in his hands. He made the plays. It's how we had to play to be competitive. And this year, it appears to be different until you get in competition.
Tony, you have to.
Could Worley and Ames play together?
What's that?
Could Worley and Ames play together?
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
they could. They can.
Yeah.
Tony, you have to take the 3 long trips this year in the conference. SMU, the 2 West Coast schools. Have you talked about the effect of the travel and how its impact and how you're going to handle it?
Yeah, it's I think our schedule, we're doing it this first year, and I think we're doing it the 3rd year, so I guess we won the lottery. I don't know how all that works, but we're going to all 3. I mean, it's one of those deals that you're trying to figure it out. We talked about, chartering with Virginia Tech because they go out there, and then when I think we're going, I think we are going to do separate. Talk about commercial versus private. If you got a few, you try to figure this out. That is a long trip, but I know one coach. They said someone suggested a longer runway to build, so you can so you can go nonstop and all that. We'll make the best of it as far as how we got to do it smart with your recovery when you travel, but it's just it's our turn. I mean, I think of Stanford and I think of Cal having to come a lot, and I think of them missing a lot of school, but I think those are issues too. But the body is resilient and strong, and I think keeping yourself as fresh as possible and how you do it.
Kyle Smith said something you might relate to. He said nothing's worse than traveling from Pullman.
You better watch himself. We're both Pullman guys. It's beautiful there.
Do you think the time difference? Do you think the time difference is going to have an effect? Like, if you play, starting at 10 or 11?
Oh, I know all our fans will be tuned in for our, I think 8 o'clock tip at Cal on whatever night. So that's it's a big viewing audience. I actually do remember that when I was at Washington State. When I came back, when I came here, I was like, oh, I try to follow some of the Pac-10. I was like,
that's what Kyle said.
Hell no, man. You're like, all of a sudden, you're like, what happened? I don't know. That's ancient. You know, I'm long. I'm in my REM sleep or my deep sleep by then or whatever it is. So, yeah, I don't know when you go out there. I mean, when I played in the NBA, I'm trying to remember that. You go and you do it. I think kids are resilient. It's probably more of a problem for the old coaches. That's the reality of it.
On the topic of NIL, you talked about a couple questions ago. Has NIL had you leave recruitments pretty early? Like
has what?
NIL.
Has what?
Had you like exit recruitments
early?
When a player lets you know that it's a financial thing, so does it kind of limit who you go after?
The pool. Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean that. Yes. I mean, I'd be dishonest if I didn't say we've lost guys that we normally would have gotten or could have gotten, not would have, could have, or been involved. But yeah, NIL, you have to be involved. But that definitely, there's certain echelon of guys that are looking for certain things, or that's the lead, and they make no bones about it. And hey, if that's what it is, that's what it is. But absolutely.
Are you seeing that a lot? Are you seeing a lot more players where it is just a money thing?
I mean, listen, I don't blame the players. A lot of this is driven by the agents. The agents are representing these players, and they're setting the market value, whatever that means, wherever it is. And again, until this gets some regulations and there's collective bargaining and all that stuff, and we say, hey, here's the salary pool, here's the regulations like pro sports have, it will continue to be set by representation and opportunities, and some schools have more than others. Some schools are a little more anxious than others and have to quick fix it. So it's like it's the world we're in.
And on the transfers, is there a rule that you would like to change with the transfer thing right now? You think it would be better for basketball with how it's operating right now?
I think that needs to be thought about. And again, I think all this comes down to, I don't see another way than like pro sports having a CBA, collective bargaining, where the athletes and the schools, the conference come together and say, okay, let's agree on some regulations to stabilize this, because it's not stable. Look, we know that revenue is going to come into this, and it should, and the athletes, that's wonderful. Worry about some other things that come with it, but that needs to be stabilized. See, what are the limits? What are some of the transfer restrictions? What are some of the tampering restrictions? What are the agent involvement? I think you have to, if you want this to get sustainable and healthy, that has to go. It'll look way different than it was. Nobody's saying that, but until then, it is. What does that look like? I mean, I know, most coaches way back, except for certain situations, said, no, it's good. Let's have them if they want to transfer, sit a year and all that. Will it ever go back to that? I don't know. Is there a 2-year? I think something needs to bring back some of that to get it stabilized. So that's the point I make.